This is Northeast Georgia's only local source for TV news. From the Grady College of the University of Georgia, this is Grady Newsource.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Owen Burt. Welcome to Grady Newsource. Tonight we have a special show. Typically we cover problems facing Northeast Georgia, but tonight we are highlighting solutions. Our reporters have spent this semester looking into ways our community has dealt with issues ranging from Narcan access and suicide prevention to invasive plants and single-use plastics. Our first story of the day tackles the limited access to Narcan, a life-saving medication for people suffering from a drug overdose. Grady Newsource reporter Sydney Hood joins us live from the newsroom. How can people access Narcan across Northeast Georgia, Sydney?
Owen, access to this life-saving drug is increasing, especially with the recent over-the-counter approval given by the FDA. Now, the demand, however, is still greater than the supply. One Georgia biker group is driving down highways, actually delivering Narcan to law enforcement officers. And they're not what you would call your typical biker club. Nearly half of these folks would be dead right now if it wasn't for Narcan. Kickstands are up and engines are hot.
We're a group full of recovery people who want to help other people find recovery, because we know what the misery is like.
Known as the Grateful Few, these bikers have quite a few to be grateful for, like simply having the gift of life.
In 1997, I overdosed on, I assume what was fentanyl. I really don't know. The nurse, she said, well, you flatlined 3 times. We've had to bring you back.
More than 25 years later, John Siders now drives, carrying with him the drug that saved his life.
Somebody will have another chance at life because of what we're doing.
The Grateful Few rides the Georgia highways year-round delivering Narcan by the boxes, addressing the increase of opioid-related deaths in the state.
I'm able to do something different, that's not a drain on society, because that's what I used to be.
An opioid overdose can turn fatal in just 6 minutes. But Narcan, given through a nasal spray, reverses the effects and restores breathing. Without Narcan, Shelly Siders could not bike with her husband today.
I'm really grateful that his life was saved by Narcan, because we met in recovery.
As the chief of the group, John Langston packs box after box.
The need is there and it's growing.
Growing to 250 boxes delivered this year, riding past last year's total of 200. But the boxes, each containing 2 doses of Narcan, aren't just found on the roads. This box right here sits on the front porch at Reboot Jackson, a recovering community organization here in Jefferson. The Grateful Few Riding Club and Reboot both unite in delivering Narcan, opening up the door, giving people a second chance at life.
We've all rose from the ashes, and this is where we are today.
Today, Langston stands at Reboot Jackson, the RCO he co-founded with one mission.
We're making people see that overdose deaths are real and that this will save people's lives.
And making sure Narcan gets into the hands of those who are on the front line.
It should be widely available. It isn't necessarily so. Any effort we can take to keep people safe, healthy, and alive is a good one.
Efforts including expanding access, not just to law enforcement.
We can expand this to licensed professional counselors and social workers, public health practitioners.
Anything to provide a second chance at life.
Does it equal recovery? No. But when you're dead, you're not going to recover.
Recovery. It's the reason this group rides clean and free.
Narcan's not the most important thing to me. What the most important thing to me is the chance that somebody else has to find recovery.
Returning the favor, one box at a time. In Jackson County, Sydney Hood, Grady Newsource. And to kind of give you an idea of what this demand looks like, the Georgia Department of Public Health says the number of fentanyl-related overdose deaths increased by more than 200% from 2019 to 2021. Now, it proves as a challenge for the grateful few, but they ride to wherever the need is across the state. Live in the newsroom, Sydney Hood, Grady Newsource.
Thank you, Sydney. The opioid crisis is a major concern in Athens, but so is mental health. As the suicide rate has been on the rise post-COVID, Grady Newsource reporter Clay Britton visited a local nonprofit right outside of downtown that works with musicians battling mental health. Let's take a look.
Sounds of music echo within the walls of Nucci Space. The purpose of it? To shine light on the stigma connected with mental illness. The namesake of Nucci Space comes from Nucci Phillips. He was a student at the University of Georgia and a musician. He struggled with mental illness and battled depression and took his life in the fall of 1996. Today, in Georgia, the suicide rate is 13.7, according to the CDC. In response to the tragedy, his mother, Linda Phillips, founded Nucci Space. They are located at the corner of Oconee Street and William Street, right behind the historic St. Mary's Steeple. Nucci Space offers counseling programs, support groups, medical clinics, and suicide prevention training they call QPR.
Which stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. But that is our suicide prevention training that we offer to really anyone that wants to come and do it.
The main goal is to help people recognize the warning signs of a mental crisis and ask for help. The director for student care and outreach at the University of Georgia, Carrie Smith, says talking about mental health has become more common, but asking for help is where the problems occur.
I find that even in circles that seem to be a little bit closed off, we have a lot of people out there that have been great listening agents for their friends, and people do want to talk about it, but it's what's step two. So then what do I do for the person that shares with me that they're struggling?
Local Athens musician who has struggled with mental health, James Stickney, agrees.
They feel so comfortable talking about their mental health that they don't do anything about it.
Nucci Space also provides affordable rehearsal studios and rental equipment, all to create an obstacle-free lifestyle for musicians.
Practice space, and you can deal with mental health there.
Nucci's is open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Last year, almost 1,500 financially assisted appointments led to individuals receiving help. Nucci Space is now asking for more volunteers as they continue to grow and fight the suicide epidemic. With Grady Newsource, I'm Clay Britton.
In 2022, those who were cyberbullied were reported to be twice as likely to experience suicidal thoughts. Grady Newsource reporter Allie Piegler has more on a suicide prevention organization that stands against bullying.
Today, Kirk Smalley is offering solutions to bullying and suicide prevention 13 years after the death of his 11-year-old son. Ty Field Smalley took his own life after 2 years of bullying. Since his death, his father has worked to keep others from suffering the same fate. Kirk Smalley began the organization Stand for the Silent in May of 2010, and since has gone to 6,012 schools, speaking to around 4 million kids through 40 states and 18 countries.
Main message to the kids that we talk to is, I am somebody. We want each kid to realize that they are somebody, that they matter, that they belong, and that they're loved for exactly who they are.
According to a study by the CDC, 1 in 5 youths have seriously considered attempting suicide, 1 in 6 had made a plan to end their life by suicide, and 1 in 11 had made an attempt. Around 2014, 15-year-old Bailey Graham heard Smalley give his speech at her school. The conversation saved and changed her life forever. Even though she had a therapist and people to talk to, she felt like she was not being heard.
Straight up came to him after the session and I said, I was going to kill myself tonight. But I reached out and I told my mom, told my friends, and since then I've kind of been different about the whole mental health stuff because it's very important and it's so glossed over.
Like Smalley and Graham, Alexis Williams feels like there needs to be more communication surrounding suicide. Williams is a master's student at UGA studying clinical mental health counseling. She knows how much of an impact an organization like Stand for the Silent can have, especially with Smalley sharing a personal experience.
And so many other people may have stories that are similar. Maybe they're not similar, but they have the same message, that people do struggle, and it is okay to talk about these things. And why aren't we talking about these things?
Although there is not a permanent solution to ending bullying or suicide, Smalley, Graham, and Williams all stand on a common ground, not being silent. They urge others to speak up, to stand up for themselves and others going through these struggles. To put it simply, they hope to play a small role in the solution and ultimately stand for the silent. Allie Piegler, Grady Newsource.
One organization here in Northeast Georgia is working to give victims of domestic violence a new start in life. Grady Newsource reporter Maddie McCaffrey joins us live in the studio. So Maddie, tell us about the Peace Place.
Well, Owen, this is an organization that helps women and children escape abusive situations. So I spoke with them about the important work that they do in our community. Let's take a look.
April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and one organization here in Northeast Georgia is a critical tool in helping women and children escape domestic abuse situations.
Right now we have a 16-bed shelter that takes in the women and the children, and we're building a new shelter that is going to be 32 beds, which unfortunately we right now just don't have enough room, so this is going to be great that we can be more beneficial for a lot more people.
1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their life. The Peace Place helps victims by providing shelter, legal advice, and mental health counseling.
Statistics say that a woman will return 7 times to her abuser before she finally leaves for good or ends up dead. So we try to do everything we can to prevent that.
Tracy shared a story about a woman who left an abusive marriage, came to the Peace Place with her 2 children, and while she was in their transitional housing, she completed her master's degree.
She is now working as a counselor in a mental health facility, has her place. Her kids are doing great. She's doing great. Just really a true success story.
Success stories emphasize the importance of places like the Peace Place, and the mission to end domestic violence in the United States is ongoing. For Grady Newsource, I'm Maddie McCaffrey. The Peace Place provides numerous resources to women and children experiencing domestic violence. I'll send things back over to you, Owen.
Thank you, Maddie. Next, we learn about a solution out of Barrow County. Newsource reporter Rachel Branning tells us how one nonprofit is working to serve some of Georgia's most vulnerable children.
One zipper and one volunteer at a time, nonprofit Adventure Bags serves children displaced from their homes across Georgia.
A lot of times when our kids are being displaced in the situations that I mentioned, they are being uprooted and not able to take anything or very few items that they need.
And that is where Adventure Bags come in, partnering with agencies to give bags to children entering foster care, domestic violence, or homeless shelters.
Volunteers fill backpacks like these with hygiene products, books, stuffed animals, and other care items to make sure that children feel comfortable.
Manus remembers one moment when a foster child in her home received his adventure bag.
He said, "Do you mean this is mine and no one's going to take it from me?" And I reassured him that that was the case, and for the next year as he was in my home, he carried that backpack around.
The organization has served over 45,000 children in almost all Georgia counties since their start in 2011. Joseph Brown has been fostering since 2020, and he's seen the change Adventure Bags has made for foster children firsthand.
When they go into care, the only thing they carry is a trash bag full of their stuff. Just one trash bag, that's it.
Arden Bachrich at Athens Oconee CASA, or Court-Appointed Special Advocates, says that these bags help fill a void that isn't the first priority of other organizations.
The priority is let's get this child out of this unsafe situation and find them somewhere to sleep tonight. And so I would say something like Adventure Bags can provide a much needed level of support and comfort to a child during a very trying and stressful time.
Adventure Bags relies on volunteers and donations, which Manus says are vital for them to be able to continue their work. However, Bachrich says that volunteers could be hard to come by as the foster care system hasn't recovered from the pandemic.
This field of work, the helping profession, especially after COVID, it has been severely impacted.
But Adventure Bags still continues, making sure that children in Georgia don't go without care and comfort. Rachel Branning, Grady Newsource.
Horse riding is enjoyed by many children, but one farm in Watkinsville has horses that specifically help people with disabilities. Reporter Juliana Washburn went to the farm to see how they find stability in their stables. Juliana, what is something that stood out to you while working on this story?
Well, Owen, this was such a heartwarming story to work on, truly. I mean, I got to go to the farm and see these kids interacting with the horses and actually see them grow physically and mentally from the interactions. And you'll see in a second, but the smiles on their faces are undeniable. And it was just really interesting to see such an untraditional kind of therapy. So let's take a look. Sandy Chu can't hold back a smile on Mondays. It's the day she rides her favorite horse, Kitty. And Sandy's father, Bob Chu, says with each ride, she gets stronger.
We can actually see things with Sandy as far as development's concerned. Her core has gotten stronger. Her legs have gotten stronger.
Sandy has cerebral palsy, and as someone who is quadriplegic, she has limited movement in her arms and legs. Sitting up on the horse helps her build the strength to do things like walk with assistance.
The icing on the cake is Sandy absolutely loves it.
And this is exactly what the founder of Butterfly Dreams Farm set out to do. Kat Thompson started the program 2 years after losing her daughter, Allie. She said Allie had profound special needs, and horses brought her healing.
I just think of her like in heaven, thinking like she would just love that to see the joy in all these other people enjoying what she loves so much.
People with disabilities come to the farm for physical and mental therapy through hippotherapy or therapeutic riding. Thompson works with kids in clinical settings and on the farm. She says they see improvements skyrocket on the farm. Good job. Kevin McCauley is a kinesiology professor at the University of Georgia, and he agrees with Thompson. He says taking things like speech therapy out of the typical clinical setting can be really helpful for progress.
If you could make therapy fun, if you could make somebody look forward to it, you've got 3/4 of the battle done right there.
McCauley says the horses not only help build physical strength, but also confidence.
More confident sitting up. They're more confident trying to walk or transfer or do things. So that's psychological. It can be a big psychological thing.
The challenge is finding the right horse for the job. Thompson says not every horse can do it. They have to be able to respond kindly if a kid gets upset while riding.
You have to find horses that are really confident and secure in themselves.
This right here next to me is Artie. He's one of the bigger but more cuddly horses here at Butterfly Dreams Farm, and he's known as being a best friend to a lot of the people that come here. And in Sandy's case, she looks forward to seeing her best friend Kitty next week. Reporting for Grady Newsource.
Now from Butterfly Dreams to brewing up some Java Joy, Grady Newsource reporter Olivia Gauthier tells us more about how a small cup of coffee can have a big impact on adults with disabilities.
Opportunity and the hope that there's a place where their kid or adult would feel welcomed and loved. That's my favorite part.
Java Joy Athens coordinator Madison McCrory explains her feelings regarding the Java Joy experience. Coffee, hug, and joy. Located inside Piedmont Athens Regional Hospital, Java Joy strives to provide adults with disabilities with meaningful employment and a community of support. McCrory understands firsthand Extra Special People, or ESP's, impact on the local community.
I say that Java Joy is kind of the hands and feet of ESP and what we do, because it's sometimes the first thing that people see when they experience ESP, and it's sometimes their first interaction with someone with a disability ever. And so it's really cool to watch our Joyristas kind of break down that barrier.
Joyristas are undoubtedly breaking down barriers one cup of coffee at a time. In the U.S., about 70% of adults with disabilities can and want to work, but only 35% are employed in meaningful work. Hannah has been working for Java Joy for about 6 years now, and when asked about her favorite part of the job, her response was no different than most of ours when it comes to working.
I like to pour coffee. I like getting paid, like money, so I could move out to Florida.
Java Joy currently employs over 50 adults across their 4 locations with the hopes of becoming the largest employer of adults with disabilities in America. UGA professor Dr. Rachel Caliani explains some of the limitations adults with disabilities face in our country.
Options and career options for people with disabilities, especially intellectual and developmental disabilities, continue to be sparse. Java Joy not only provides an opportunity for adults with disabilities to work, but they demonstrate the potential in other organizations for including people with disabilities.
While the issue of opportunity remains, the Java Joy program still strives to make small steps in the right direction.
The world is not necessarily built for people with disabilities. Luckily, here in Athens, we have a great community that knows who we are and knows kind of what they're getting themselves into. But it's definitely a pressure point that you feel of breaking down that barrier for someone to meet someone with a disability for the first time and learn what our program is. So,
Olivia Goche, Grady Newsource.
At the D1 Training Fitness Facility in Watkinsville, certified instructors offer a non-contact boxing class 3 days a week to provide fitness and improved physical well-being for people living with Parkinson's disease. Grady Newsource reporter McGregor Rowland recently visited the gym and has more on the solution to a problem facing nearly 1 million people in the U.S.
Here at D1, a new type of boxing is implemented to help people dealing with Parkinson's. The classes are taught by physical therapist Mickey Hines, and she is a certified trainer under Rocksteady Boxing, a national nonprofit that provides workout classes to improve the fitness and livelihood of those living with Parkinson's. Hines promotes the program with her brother and former UGA football coach Mark Richt, who announced his own Parkinson's diagnosis in 2021.
When I made it public on my Twitter account, I had a lot of people come to me with ideas of how to treat it. And Rocksteady kept coming up over and over.
Beginning the program here locally this past September, Hines' passion for teaching stems from her brother.
When he was diagnosed and he said, hey, why don't we try to do this Rocksteady boxing thing, I was like, I'm all in. So that's why, that was the main reason I did it, was because of Mark.
The training of Rocksteady is meant to be rigorous and challenging to its participants, incorporating all different forms of exercises, with studies showing participants regaining increased quality of life, balance, and gait over a certain period.
Parkinson's is a movement disorder. And so then the science is, let's maybe with exercise, forced, intense, like boxing, slow it down. Let's try to slow the progression down if possible.
While this type of training is by no means a cure, it has received support from many academic professionals who see positive effects on the movement problems caused by Parkinson's.
One thing about Parkinson's disease is not only just the movement problems, but it's the ability to initiate an action. So that requires formulating a goal, then deciding how you're going to move, and then initiating that act. And I think that with repetition in boxing or in Tai Chi or any one of many activities that involve major muscle groups and control, you're going to find some advantages.
While the physical benefits are key for their mission, Hines and Richt also look to the bigger picture of forming a community atmosphere, something that they think is key when providing the benefits of this service.
The exercise is great and all the science behind it is great, but we're a family, we're a community of people that are dealing with the same stuff. In the end, we know we got to enjoy every day the best we can and just keep fighting.
McGregor Rowland, Grady Newsource.
One Facebook group is building a network of people who support each other, both online and in real life. Mutual Aid Athens lets members give what they can and take what they need. Reporter Olivia Wakeham tells us how.
Hair dryers at Ayla Farah Salon are a common sound for Callie Schneiderwind, but it wasn't always like this. Schneiderwind moved to the Athens area about 2 years ago after separating from an abusive partner. She brought her 5 kids to Georgia for a fresh start.
Trying to navigate the different avenues of support, you can get kind of hopeless. And so I was just struggling to buy groceries.
8 months ago, Schneiderwind found support in an unexpected place, the Mutual Aid Athens Facebook group. After sharing her story, she received an outpouring of support. A member even went grocery shopping for her family.
Sometimes I don't think people realize that impact. I gave her a huge hug and she was kind of like, it's okay, it's not that big of a deal, but for us it was a really big deal.
The group is private, but anyone can join after answering a few questions. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, over 10 million people a year are physically abused by a partner. Schneiderwind said fleeing domestic abuse left her feeling isolated, but Mutual Aid gave her a space where she found support. Joel Isler, a part-time professor at the University of Georgia, says Mutual Aid addresses gaps and failures in the government. He calls it solidarity, not charity.
Or giving what you have and taking what you need.
Mutual aid could mean sending a few dollars to help someone with their utility bill, or it could be sharing resources you've heard about in the area. It can also be more hands-on than that. One member grows edible crops in his neighborhood, which he gives out to mutual aid members. Moderator Ariel Alexis's role in Mutual Aid Athens starts with typing up Facebook posts. She organizes the online portion of the group by sharing information and centralizing resources for other members.
We need these smaller groups and smaller entities of community-focused care because there's always going to be need in the community itself.
Isler says there are some barriers to having a group that's based online.
It's with the assumption that people have regular, constant access to the internet.
Alexis says the group has had several big successes, like organizing a Christmas gift program which provided about 50 families with gifts.
That's been my favorite personal change in the group, is just people being a little more actively involved in helping others.
Schneiderman wants to use her own skills to help people in Mutual Aid Athens.
I can cut hair, and that doesn't cost me anything, but it makes a big impact.
It's a community they're building one Facebook post at a time. For Grady Newsource, Olivia Wakeham.
Despite being one of the wealthiest nations in the world, the United States has nearly 40 million people living in poverty. However, breaking that cycle of poverty can be difficult for people if they lack the proper resources. Grady Newsource reporter Logan Crump joins us live from the Classic Center, where a program helps at-risk individuals. So Logan, how does this program work?
Well, Owen, right behind me is the Classic Center, which houses Bread for Life, a program which offers hands-on vocational training for its students. That training then allows those students to become career and industry professionals so they can lift themselves out of financial hardship. Here's more.
Our program is for people who are seeking a second chance opportunity for employment.
Bread for Life is an organization that seeks to lift their students out of poverty, provide hands-on job training in classes, along with guiding them into successful careers in the hospitality industry.
Half of their day is spent in a lab, a learning lab, and the other half of the day is spent in the classroom. During those labs, they get to work right alongside other employees, just as if they're a real employee, and they really are.
Students are accepted into the program based on their background. Those who have a history of probation or parole, addiction recovery, victims of domestic violence, or SNAP beneficiaries are eligible and encouraged to join.
Bread for Life offers a unique One Pathway to Success curriculum that, by the end of the pathway, offers its students a direct and immediate access to a sustainable career.
This holistic approach to adult education allows students to meet with industry leaders and learn from them in order to develop soft skills that are vital in the competitive job market.
This current class is doing great, and they're just moving right along, and they're excited about finishing the program.
I learned a lot about being, I can name out one, being a servant leader. The little bit that I have got from being a servant leader is it ain't all about this relying on your power, but to have a heart of good service.
It's just teaching you just gotta go to work, so heal yourself.
The individualized and training-heavy course load, however, comes with one setback: class size. Bread for Life is an 8-week program that can only hold 2 to 3 students at a time, meaning not all applicants will be inducted into the program, and many must be placed on the wait list. Despite this, Amy Camp believes the smaller class size is a benefit to her students as she gets to educate them one-on-one and drive them personally to success.
Gives me the chance to just see people for who they are and meet them where they are.
Working with Amy, Randrick, and Alanda was truly a heartwarming experience. That second chance aspect of Bread for Life really shows just how people can pull themselves up and into the lives that they truly want to live. Back to you, Owen.
Thank you, Logan. One organization here in Athens connects students to resources so they can succeed. Family Connections is a navigator that connects people to help in their times of need, whether it's food, clothes, or even a winter coat. Grady Newsource reporter Connor Hendricks has a look.
And what really excites me about Athens is that it's a community of a lot of caring people.
Gary Birch is a board member of Family Connection, Communities in Schools. The organization is working to connect families to the resources they need. In Athens, 1 in 4 people live in poverty. Birch hopes FCCIS's programs can help raise people out of poverty by making sure kids graduate.
A first grader, if he gets off on the wrong start and he starts feeling bad about school, he's not doing well in school, that can affect the rest of his educational experience.
FCCIS has a network of neighborhood leaders working in the community and coordinators inside of some Clark County schools. Some of the services FCCIS can help with are helping to apply for food stamps, free and reduced lunch, and school uniform costs. Ariel Seiler's sister received help from FCCIS after she was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder after giving birth. Seiler regularly refers people who need help to them. FCCIS is able to help people with teen pregnancy, homelessness, and getting documents people need to apply for jobs like Social Security cards. One family Seiler referred to FCCIS was moving from Jackson County who couldn't afford school uniforms and needed help applying for free and reduced lunch.
And it took a big weight off of their shoulders to have support within the school itself to help get uniforms for all of their children.
Sakara Fisher is an education professor at UGA who studies school-based intervention programs. Fisher says school-based intervention programs should be more focused on prevention, like FCCIS does with their Neighborhood Leaders program.
Putting the fence at the edge of the cliff instead of being the ambulance at the bottom of it is always going to be better.
Birch says one challenge FCCIS faces is getting some people in the community to give support to their programs.
We need to get the haves support programs that will bring up the have-nots.
The Go Succeed program in Athens, Clarke County gives students the skills to succeed after graduating. It is held every Tuesday after school at Clarke Central High, where they provide college and career prep, including SAT and ACT tutoring and more. Grady Newsource reporter Destiny Johnson tells us how this program prepares students for the future.
The Go Succeed program is helping students of Clarke Central High School prepare for life post-graduation. The program offers a range of services to students such as SAT prep and career support. The program started as an SAT summer camp last year. Shortly after, College Factory, a nonprofit organization in Athens that helps high school students accomplish their college, career, and workplace goals, provided funding for it this summer. Now Go Succeed is held each Tuesday at Clarke Central High School.
Everybody has different needs. Some kids might want some time or some help with it on an essay, college essay, while some need to learn the ins and outs of like FAFSA or whatever, those things. And there's another student who we helped with their resume, so they can get a job.
The program exposes students to opportunities that exist beyond high school, including those who have parents that were unable to attend college. Aaron Horton, one of the facilitators of the program, says that some of the students struggle a little with where to focus their attention.
I was really kind of intrigued by the idea of having just kind of that extended time to work a little bit more one-on-one with students and work on developing some of their personal skills as well as some of their more academic skills, which seems to be the main focus of this program.
Carrie Emerson, a teacher at Clarke Central High School, says that it may be harder to get this information to certain groups that are more difficult to reach.
A lot of times there's a language barrier between the school and the parents, so it can be more difficult to get those parents involved with the school, and I think it just takes extra effort on the teacher and school staff's part to make sure to try to connect with those parents in ways that they're comfortable with.
Brian Ash hopes that students are not as worried about their options when it comes to this big thing called after high school.
Maybe they're not as worried about this big thing called after high school. What does it mean? What are my options?
From Grady Newsource, I'm Destiny Johnson.
1 in 6 residents of Athens, Clarke County are considered food insecure, which means they lack consistent access to food. Grady Newsource reporter Hannah Nelson tells us about a program that allows residents to access fresh fruits and vegetables at no extra cost.
Fresh fruits and vegetables are important factors of a healthy diet and lifestyle, but some people aren't able to access these resources. According to Feeding America, 1 in 6 residents of Athens, Clarke County are considered food insecure, and 35% of those people do not qualify for nutrition assistance. One local organization wants to bridge that gap. PharmRx, or the Food as Medicine Prescription Program, provides access to free and fresh fruits and vegetables to low-income families of Athens, Clarke County. The program is run through the Athens Farmers Market, which provides the local produce. During the 6-month program, participants take part in cooking and nutrition classes and receive free health checkups. Monica Bledsoe, the coordinator of PharmRx, says that participants are chosen through an application process.
We have a survey that asks all of the eligibility questions,
and a little bit of more information about who who the interested applicant is. And then I myself, along with my team, will go through all the applications and review and work through contacting each person, making sure that they understand all of the requirements of the program.
Participants are able to purchase their produce at one of two markets: the Saturday market, which is held here at Bishop Park, and the Wednesday market, which is held at Creature Comforts in downtown Athens. When the participants arrive, they receive an allotment of tokens. Now, each token is worth $1, and the total tokens equals their amount of money that they are able to spend. Then the participants are able to spend those tokens on fresh produce for themselves and their family. Farm RX receives its funding through Wholesome Wave Georgia, an organization that partners with local organizations to provide fresh produce to low-income families. The organization also works in partnership with the University of Georgia SNAP Ed program. According to Dr. Jun Sun Lee, UGA has been a longtime supporter of Farm RX.
Here, UGA has been an active participant, especially under SNAP Ed. We have 2 PhD students actually directly and actively involved in the development of regional model, and they actually conducted research studies evaluating the impact and the feasibility of the model we had.
In 2021, Farm RX reported an 85% completion rate of the program. Despite their best efforts, Bledsoe says life circumstances caused some to stop participating in the program. Through initiatives like free transportation, Bledsoe hopes to raise that number to 100%. Hannah Nelson, Grady Newsource.
Low-income residents in Athens aren't just benefiting from free produce at farmers markets. Grady Newsource reporter Josh Talevsky tells us how a local nonprofit is working to help those in need of transportation through bike donations and other programs.
Spare parts are organized and bicycles are hung in the shop of Bike Athens. Founded in 1992, the nonprofit has spent over 3 decades working to eliminate transportation barriers in the community. Scott Long started as a volunteer at Bike Athens before becoming its executive director in 2019. To Long, biking not only helps people grow as individuals, but also gives them an opportunity to improve their social and economic situations.
The big picture there is just like, oh, you've really helped someone. You know, when someone is in poverty, the quickest way that you can help pull them out of poverty is to give them access to transportation.
According to the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, Americans spend 13% of their household incomes on transportation. With the poverty rate at 28.8% in Athens, residents face an even greater challenge in getting from place to place. But through Bike Athens' donation program, Athenians can obtain a bike to help manage the issue. Long says they usually donate 100 to 120 bikes a year.
The people that have to walk that are actually capable of riding a bike, those are the ones that like really seek us out, because they know that just like, if I just had a bike, my day could be so much better. It really affects the way people are able to access social services, education, healthcare, just shopping.
But it doesn't just stop at donations. Bike Athens also sells refurbished bikes and accessories and repair bikes daily. Additionally, they lead group joyrides and educational classes and host weekly Fix Your Own Bike nights. Bike Athens client Jeffrey Bussey chooses to ride his bike because it is easy, free transportation. Through Fix Your Own Bike nights, Bussey has not only been able to work on the upkeep of his bike, but has found a space he connects with.
Having a community bike shop like this is like instrumental in one establishing sort of a bike community, and then also just, you know, giving you a place to go and sort through parts and sort of get more involved in bike life.
But a key challenge people like Bussey are still facing stems from road safety.
There's a big gap in safety too that's been growing. The types of deaths and serious injuries that we're seeing a lot of now, things are actually getting a lot worse for people biking and walking relative to the amount of deaths and serious injuries that are occurring for people driving.
For Bike Athens, challenges remain from hesitancies people have towards fixing and riding bikes, as well as finding more volunteers. Long says Bike Athens sits on the Athens in Motion Commission to work on addressing safety and infrastructure issues in the area. With the help of donations, grants, and community partners, Bike Athens continues to strive to leave a mark on the lives of Athenians.
To be able to like work on a bike and then actually see it impact somebody's life is that's huge for me.
Millions of tons of textile waste fill landfills every year, creating greenhouse gases that pollute air, water, and land. But one store here in Athens is working to reduce waste. Grady Newsource reporter Ashley Balsavius joins us live with this response.
Thanks, Owen. My story is about a sustainable shop here in Athens called Totally Tailored. The store hopes to reduce textile waste by selling reusable products, and it's home to a refillery where customers can bring any empty container and refill household items like shampoo. When I first covered this story in February, I knew the shop was making a difference, but there wasn't a whole lot of data to show just how much waste is being reduced. Now, thanks to a new report, that data from January to March this year shows the store has saved 421 8-ounce plastic bottles total from landfills since January. You can see the breakdown here. By month, 151 bottles in January, the most at 161 in February, and 109 in March. And more than 36 yards of textile waste has been saved. That's equivalent to almost 1,300 inches of fabric. My story shows how all of it works. Take a look. When Taylor Uli learned to sew 4 years ago, she discovered just how harmful fashion waste can be.
It was really sad and hard for me to hear about textile waste. It's one of the largest contributions to the landfill.
Over 11 million tons of textiles and 27 million tons of plastic filled landfills in 2018. But she wanted to make a difference, so she started sewing and selling reusable tote bags. 4 years later, she's still selling tote bags, but her Athens storefront and sustainable shop sells everything from earrings to reusable paper towels. And it's home to a refillery. Customers can bring in any empty container and purchase refills of household items such as hand soap and shampoo, reducing waste one bottle at a time. You can bring empty plastic bottles like this one to the refillery here at Totally Tailored. And every time you do it, you're reducing your impact of single-use plastic waste. But it's not just waste reduction that brings customers in these doors.
The really big selling point is that it's non-toxic, it's safe for you.
Jane Fertig has been living sustainably her whole life. As an environmentally conscious customer, she shops here.
We're not really living in today's society in really healthy, sustainable ways.
Shopping here is a small step to change that. But shopping sustainable takes sacrifice.
For every one shop like Taylor's that is doing this great work, there are 1,000 or more Walmarts. Consumers, as much as we benefit from these small stores like Taylor's and we are able to cut down on our own personal waste, the system is not built in our favor.
That's something she hopes will change.
Because I think that the way of the future is every community will have a refillery. I think people really like the wholesomeness of it.
And it's those wholesome customer relationships she says she's most proud of, bringing customers back again and again. Ashley Balsavius, Grady News.
Thank you, Ashley. Now for an update on a Georgia county that is providing a blueprint for how to battle invasive wildlife. Grady Newsource reporter Colin Oakes has the story on how Oconee County is ensuring the survival of its native species.
The Oconee County government is moving into some fresh new digs this summer. A new administration building is on schedule to be completed July 5th. County Administrator Justin Kerouac explains what that means for the people of Oconee County.
They'll provide a one-stop shop for the citizens, so if people need to come get their permit, pay their business license, tax, even everything from voting will be held at the new building.
The idea to split up the administration and judicial departments was first made in 2004 on the special purpose sales tax referendum. But it wasn't until 2018 that the county began searching for a piece of land near the intersection of Highways 15 and 441 and creating the budget of $14.8 million. It's a big project, and Kerouac knows that change can sometimes make people nervous.
It's a new work environment for a lot of people, and so I would argue that it'll be a better one.
I'm sorry about that, guys. That was the wrong piece. But now, our last piece, last but certainly not least, my story. I had always heard that golf courses were an environmental bad guy. I was surprised to find that UGA, our golf course, just became a certified Audubon International Cooperative Sanctuary. Let's take a look.
Me, I consider it a prerequisite to do those things
and try to achieve as much environmental sustainability as we possibly can to show the outside community what UGA is all about and what our mission is. We'll see it.
Scott Griffith, the Director of Agronomy at the UGA Golf Course and the Golf Superintendent of the Year, heard about the Audubon certification through other people in the golf world. Audubon International is trying to help golf courses shed the environmentally unfriendly stigma.
And what that does.
They have 6 components they focus on when certifying golf courses. These include increasing wildlife habitat areas, reducing water pollution, and reducing chemical use. Frank Lavadera from Audubon International feels like most superintendents share Griffith's sentiments.
I don't think I've met a golf course superintendent yet in my almost 5 years in this job of somebody who really doesn't care about the environment and doesn't care about the wildlife that lives on his or her course.
Griffith says when they were preparing for certification, they focused mainly on building wildlife habitats as well as water quality testing. They test the water when it enters the property, on the property, and as well as where it leaves the property.
So water testing is a big component of that. Fortunately, every time we've ever tested, our water has been cleaner than it from entering the property. It's cleaner when it leaves the property. And so we're really proud of that fact.
The golf course houses bird and owl boxes, ponds home to turtles, and they're going to add a bee colony as well as a butterfly sanctuary.
One of the major plants that supports monarch butterflies is milkweed. So milkweed's usually not available until June, so we got a little time to work on it until we get there, because we're going to be planting a lot of milkweed in here for the monarchs. Researchers and professors all.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed learning about the many ways in which our community is working to better itself and its people, making sure that nobody is left behind. Have a good night.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far. I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna. Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
You're home before sunrise. On top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
We'll go to Cassidy, tell us how we did and how the live show went. I thought it was a very smooth show, but tell us how it went because we have some special guests, so make it quick.
All right, yeah, I'll make it quick. I think from a tech side, this show was pretty smooth. People had stuff in on time. which much appreciated. Live shot, like y'all got there with plenty of time. We got to check and even move the shot around to make sure it looked the best as possible. So that's always wonderful on our side. Just the one technical hiccup is just make sure when you're sending us stuff, you're sending us the right package that you want to go on air. But
makes sense.
It happens. But other than that, I thought it was a really good show. People did a good job on the tech side on our end, and
yes,
hopefully
you
y'all thought it
did
looked
a
good.
great job. And thank you so much.
Yeah,
so,
of
as I
course.
mentioned, we have two very, very, very special guests. We, from the Solutions Journalism Network, we couldn't get better guests and experts to watch this show and see how we are progressing as a program, trying to create content that's engaging, that meets the principles of solutions journalism. I'd like to introduce to you guys Francine Huff and Michael Davis. Thank you so very much. I have sent them all your stories, and they have spent quite a lot of time giving individual attention to every story and now watching our show. We really appreciate it very much. And I would like to send it over to you, Francine and Michael. Francine, if you want to go first, the things that you noticed, but first if you could introduce yourself and what you do for the Solutions Journalism Network. Michael, same to you after Francine does that.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and enjoyed seeing the show come together after seeing the different individual pieces. So I'm Francine Huff, and I'm the Director of Training and Curriculum for the Solutions Journalism Network. I've been here for about a year and a half, maybe a little longer. And before that, I was a professor at Florida A&M. And I guess what stood out for me is that I felt like the pieces were very strong overall. And I saw a lot of attention for trying to address the 4 pillars in a lot of the stories. I think for me, a couple of the standout stories that I felt really hit the mark in those areas were the adventure bag stories. I think that was Rachel's story. It had stats for how many children had been helped or served. It talked about, it explained well what the program was and why the program was needed. And it also talked about, some of the limitations of not being able to always find enough volunteers for it. So I thought that story was very strong and stood out for me. I also felt like the Java Joy story that Olivia did was a pretty strong story. It had good quotes from people who had benefited from the program and had the people who worked there. And it also talked about how many people have actually been employed. And then the bigger picture of, I think it said they were trying to aim for being one of the largest employers in the country of disabled people. So I like that it talked about where it's at now, but also where they're looking to go. And I just felt like those 2 stories really did stand out for me. But overall, I thought the stories flowed well and really, explained these amazing programs really well.
Thank you, Francine. Well, actually, Rachel was our producer. This is Rachel, whose story stood out. This is the first time producing, but everybody helped her out also with some great content. And Olivia Gauthier, who's right here, she was our managing editor. Her story, the Java Joy story. So we had both of them create the content that stood out to you, and I just wanted to introduce them and what their roles were today in the newsroom. What about you, Michael? Introduce yourself and tell us what stood out to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Davis, and I manage our training and curriculum operations. And man, do I have a lot to say. And it's all for the good. Listen, I was able to view last semester's crop of stories. They were very good. I have to say that there has been progress at Grady in semester over semester. These stories were sturdier. There was better evidence of the 4 pillars. I thought they were produced better. I thought that they, You did a wonderful job overall in sourcing and having people speak on camera who are worth listening to. That's a really important piece of this. And the one thing that really struck me this time was you've done a great job of extracting some problems in your community and the way that the problems are being addressed. Many of them are national societal problems, right? The suicide rate is astonishingly high. As an example, spousal abuse and those deeper topics that you touched on. And I want you to remember as you go out into the world of work soon that that's a big part of your job, making absolutely certain that your audience knows that these big national problems come home to roost in your community, and it's your job to be able to shed a light on those problems through your reporting. It's a really big part of what you do. I gave a grading to the stories as I went along here, and I actually saw everything twice. And I could be a tough grader. Anyway, on a 4-star system, nobody got 4 stars. But two students got 3.5 stars, or maybe 3 3/4 stars. And the ones I want to call out were Josh's story about Bike Athens. I thought was really well done, very well produced, and very good editing. My gosh, it was silky smooth, and you did such a great job of establishing the evidence and the limitations. And really, from the bat, you did a great job of explaining the problem, which some stories did and some stories didn't. You did a really great job of articulating what the problem is, and I thought, right at the end, you didn't rush when you got to the point where that source said a key challenge is road safety. You lingered and you explained it, and you used a source to back it up. I think some of the stories you kind of slipped in the limitations at the end, oh, and by the way, and then you're gone. But I thought that Josh did a really good job of making it prominent, making the limitation a real strong part of the story. So my hat's off to you. I really loved the variety of images, the angles, you shot up, you shot down. It had a lot of visual interest and a lot of interest for the air. So big thumbs up. And you know what? I really like Sydney's story on the Grateful Few. Yay! So here's why. You taught me something today. I really had no idea that this antidote is so hard for people to get in their hands. That's astonishingly bad. And I had no idea that this was a problem. You did such a good job of introducing your audience to the active players in this story. And I felt like I knew these people at the end. And, and I love the guy on the porch at the end who was sort of ruminating about all of this. And his quote about when you're dead, you're not going to recover. That's true. But I thought that story really was so solid and very, very well produced, very well thought through and polished. And again, very well edited. Video editing is it's an art and a craft. And I think that story was an example of a student who really seems to be excelling in that part of the business. So my hat's off to you. I also want to throw out a couple of other shout outs here. Logan for the Bread for Life. I thought that the whole idea of a holistic approach to career education was unique. And I thought you brought that to life well. I too like the adventure bag story very much. I did. Um, and another story that touched on something I didn't know anything about or never think about is textile waste. And I thought Ashley did a really fine job of introducing me to this problem. And it just seems like this sort of delightful place in your town where people can come and the refilling station. That's a very cool thing. So all of those folks get a special nod, but I want every person in the room to feel good about the show because it was really good, and you are doing what I don't think many other university-based television stations are doing right now. I can think of maybe one more, but you're doing something special. You are at the forefront of this, and I expect that you'll be making a huge impact on television news as a result of what you've learned at Grady.
Wow. I think you should get a round of applause for yourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. Really proud of, and those are not easy stories. They submit pitches like a week in advance. They work so hard because it's not their usual day turn, quick turn package. And they have to have extra sources and go in depth and meet all these principles, and they do it once a semester. So this is really moves me to hear what you had to say, and to really thank you for taking all this special care to individually request all those stories be sent to you so that you can watch them. It really means a lot. I wanted to give you one more round, one more chance to share anything else, any advice as they go out into the real world. And they have been exposed and they've done so well to this kind of journalism. Any thoughts any tips, any advice you could have? Francine, we can go to you. Anything else you would like to tell us?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So again, keep looking at this as part of your regular practice of journalism. Don't just say we did this in class and we had to do it for this assignment and I'm going to put it away in this box and not include it as I move forward. Include this type of solutions reporting, this rigorous evidence-based type of reporting as something to consider as you are just doing journalism on a daily basis. Not every story, as you know, will be a solution story, but there are many stories out there in communities across the country that need to be told, and being trained to tell these stories with this approach. This is something that helps communities, helps people find things that can help them in their lives. It helps people be better. And so this is very important work you're doing. And I want you to know that it's very important work. And audiences resonate with this type of reporting. So I just encourage you as you move forward through reporting for your news outlet there, as well as going into internships or even into your full-time job once you graduate. Take this with you as a part of your toolkit for your approach to telling really important, impactful stories.
Great advice, and that's the whole point of really going more in depth and really correcting the imbalance of, if it bleeds, it leads, the negative bias which we have. And as you said, Francine, it's not that we don't report the problems, but if we don't look for what is being done about them, we are really not serving our audience. And I hope you'll be able to impress your future employers coming once in a while with a solution story. And excuse me, and I would like to really thank you for doing so much work to develop this concept at the network and join us and support our students in this wonderful way. Michael, I wanted to also give you a chance to share your wisdom and things that you would like the students to take away as they go into the real world with this, as Francine said, this tool in their toolkit.
Yeah. Your audiences will notice a difference when you do this kind of work. You will gain a reputation as being someone who gives a damn about the community, gives a damn enough to say, wait a minute, there's this problem that just keeps repeating and repeating itself, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere on it. What are other communities doing about this problem? When you go out and you do that reporting and you bring it back to your community, you've done a great service. You have changed the conversation in town. You have given people ideas to consider. And maybe in some cases it may even result in an actual change. You may give your elected leaders or community leaders an idea that they could put into play. That's very powerful. And it is part of our job. Don't believe 1 minute if someone should say to you that it's not part of our job. I want you to keep in mind the idea that we can be both watchdogs and guide dogs as journalists. We need to be watchdogs, no question about it. We need to do investigations. We need to hold people accountable. But it is a very dangerous and treacherous world in some respects. And, people need to feel like there is hope. And these stories yield what we call constructive hope. They're not squishy feel-good stories, right? Because you are going after the evidence and you're also going after the limitations, which keeps anyone from saying that you're an advocate for anything. If you are reporting the limitations of the response, you are covering yourself and from that accusation. This work is so important. Why? Because, as you know, audiences are pulling back. Audiences have been told that we're the enemy of the people as journalists, that we can't be trusted, that we have agendas. And, the truth is that the only agenda is your passion for telling stories and for covering the community. That's a passion. And that's why you are in journalism school. That's why you enrolled at Grady. You're going to follow that passion. And I want you to keep that flame alive, because what you do is incredibly important to our democracy. We are with the only profession that's baked into the Constitution. Founding fathers had enough foresight to see that we needed to have this fourth estate of government, this living, breathing, evolving part of American life. And what you do is not only important, it's critically important to the health of a democracy. So that's what I want you to remember. You got into this business for the right reasons. You want to see a better world. And solutions journalism can play a part in helping to lead us to a better day.
Very, very inspiring, both of you. I'd like to just, if you have a few more moments, see if anybody has some questions for you, if you have a few more moments. Guys, questions, please. Grab a mic.
On the limitation side, especially with my story, suicide, I don't know. I just had trouble with the limitations, and I think one of mine was just people not asking for help. And I guess just what would y'all's advice be for more limitations on that story, the Nucci space story?
Richie? I'll take it if you want. Yeah. Listen, the limitation that you just articulated is a really good place to start. I know with a lot of suicide prevention organizations that they would tell you that they do this important work, but it doesn't get out into the community in a way that awareness is as high as it needs to be. That's a limitation, right? I mean, there are still people out there who are attempting suicide and sadly, committing suicide. So there's work to be done. So ask that question of your sources. What more could be done if you had more money or more resources or greater growth? I mean, what's holding the organization back from reaching more people? That's a good place to start when you're looking for limitations. Those kinds of questions.
Yeah, and I would just add that most places are the first thing they'll say is we don't have enough money. That's always going to be but push them to think beyond just the financials and to talk about some of those other things that may not be as obvious.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, especially organizations that rely on a volunteer base, because that fluctuates a great deal. Get them to talk about that, how the struggle to retain and to look for new volunteers to recruit. Always a fruitful line of questioning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For nonprofits.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for asking it. Come on, your mothers didn't raise any shy children. Come on.
Yes.
Somebody grab a
Come on,
microphone.
guys. Who wants the mic? Olivia, our other Olivia. We have two Olivias. One is Olivia G, the other one is Olivia W.
Yes.
You can never have enough Olivias.
Yes,
I always
the
say
beautiful
that.
name. I love that name. Anyway.
I'm curious, like if, say you were in a newsroom where maybe the leadership team didn't feel it was as important to produce and give time to those stories, how do you reason with them and show them that that is something that the reporters should be dedicating time to?
Yeah, I think that's a real thing that you may encounter going out into into the field. I think what you really, there are research studies that do talk about how solutions resonates with people. But even more importantly, it's really looking at the impact it's having on communities and looking beyond just, that problem-focused story and looking at how can you show your editor that you are coming up with evidence of programs working and how it's impacting communities. That's something that you may find yourself in a position to have to maybe possibly educate people in your newsroom about. But I think that really still showing that it's evidence-based, that it's rigorous reporting, that it's not just, feel-good, fluffy PR type stories, that shows the rigor of what you're doing. And I think that as you continue to show that rigor and come up with those stories that has real evidence and that really examines the story and digs into some of those limitations and even the insights of how this is impacting people and communities, that is what will continue to convince some of the holdouts in newsrooms, I think.
Yeah, and that was a big struggle, Francine, for the Solutions Journalism Network to be taken seriously 10 years ago when they started this journey.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, Solutions is more widely known and widely accepted, but there are still people who just want to do it the quick way. And I'm not going to say that you might not end up in a newsroom where there's more of a focus on a quick turnaround of a story and trying to just meet that deadline to get stories out there quickly online. And that's part of the news cycle. But dig deeper, challenge yourself to dig deeper, to really examine those stories. And really, even if you have to do that quick turnaround story, maybe later you have time to go back and maybe there was, a piece of that story that you felt like just wasn't told, or you found a solution that you can later focus on.
Some of you are going to go to stations that have a robust website and where you're asked as a television journalist to also write stories for that website, right? That's how I would answer that reluctant editor of yours or producer of yours or executive producer. I would write a text version of my story and grab some visuals to augment it, and I would follow that trail of how many people shared that story, liked that story, responded to that story. I would say create your own evidence of the efficacy of doing solutions journalism. Let the facts speak, right? So, but you've got to do that by backing yourself up and writing a piece for the website that you can track. It's harder to track an individual story in a newscast, right? That doesn't happen very much, although it can happen, but it's much easier the other way around. So, and don't back off the first time that an executive producer says to you, "We don't have time for this. I'm not into reporting on what's working in our community. We got to report on what's not working." Just believe in yourself and do those stories. And I do think over time, what happens in markets is there's a building awareness that this particular news station in our market does very different stories. They tell me things that I've never heard of. And sometimes I watch the stories on that station, I go, darn, I never knew that. That's what you want. You want people to walk away from your stories going, that's really interesting. That's an interesting idea, right? That I saw last night on the station. And getting that kind of response from viewers builds a kind of loyalty to you and your personal brand as a reporter, which is, of course, you're interested in, right? You want to build your reputation as a resourceful, inventive, energetic reporter.
Yeah, and you also want to keep track of any impact that you're hearing about related to your stories. If you're having people in the community who reach out to you directly and tell you about specific things that have happened to them or successes because of the story you reported out, or if you're hearing of even, legislation being proposed or guidelines for some type of organization, like when you're hearing about those kind of impacts happening, let your editors know that. Let them know that this story that you reported, people are contacting you and giving you information about things that have happened directly as a result of that story.
Yeah. And if you're doing an investigation, let's say a 2-part investigation, do a part 3. Do a solutions part 3 on the last day. And I will guarantee you that that's the story that people will remember most. They'll remember what they watched the previous nights, but they'll remember that you did a story that said, it doesn't have to be this way. I found an example of a community that's doing it differently. That's the one they'll remember.
Wow. I'm taking notes because I will be using this in my teaching. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And that thing about, creating your own evidence and, going to your editors and saying, yeah, this piece of legislation, my story could have contributed, and standing out. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I took amazing notes that will help me. One more question, guys. Let's have one more question. They're so shy. Francine, Michael, Any closing thoughts? I really, really appreciate all the special attention and the time you spent with us, the care you gave each and every student, and this just amazing advice and all the notes that I was taking that will help more students. Any closing thoughts?
Just keep doing what you're doing, and just, being a journalist is a constant, it's just constantly perfecting your craft. Continue working on, all of your video skills, your writing skills, your speaking skills, all of those, your editing skills. Just keep working on them, and just keep perfecting them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Try to always come up with one question, and be that person who really thinks critically, and a little bit deeper, so that you can come up with those questions and come up with those things that will make your work really stand out.
Excellent advice. Michael, any closing
Yeah,
thoughts
well,
from you?
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, how about them dogs? Congratulations on the national championship.
Yes.
And then, just some advice for graduation. Please thank your parents. I'm guessing that some of you were a pain in the tail as teenagers, and you gave your parents sleepless nights. Now you're so much older, and you're past that. And just remember at graduation to thank them.
Actually,
clearly they did a great job, because look at you.
You want to tell Michael what your idea is for our final show? Actually, Clay, who's going to be producing our final show, has that idea, actually exactly what you mentioned.
Yeah, we're going to have some of our parents on for the show. Was just wanted to get a segment in there of their takeaways and, I don't know, their advice from an audience standpoint. Because I know we have a bunch of parents that are big fans of our show. So, yeah.
And
I
I
love
so
that
thank
idea.
those wonderful parents, because I have their children here, and it's just such a joy to have smart and enthusiastic and creative young people who all want to excel and who all have made such progress. It's just an honor to teach their children. I hope that they are watching and that they're realizing what amazing children they've raised, and I'm sure that you will thank your parents, but I also want to thank them as a parent also. I know how hard it is. I've just raised one son, and it is the most important, rewarding, but the hardest thing, most important thing I've done in my life. So I also thank the parents, and I also thank you, Francine, and Michael. You have become such good friends and supporters of our program, and I really, really thank you from my heart. It means a lot, and we learned a lot, and I wish you lots of success, and thank you so much. And we give you a round of applause for all the important work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.